For our first pantry meal, we will be having a spaghetti supper with Italian garlic bread and a chocolate cowboy cake. For the spaghetti supper, I'm going to use this box of angel hair pasta, this jar of spaghetti sauce, this pint of ground turkey that I canned, and that will be the spaghetti, and then I'm going to serve that with a can of cut green beans. And before dinner that day, I will take my flour and 1 packet of yeast and some olive oil and water and make my Italian bread. And then when that's done, I will slice up the bread, and I take some more olive oil and I pour it in this little container here, and I sprinkle in some garlic powder and some Italian seasoning, and I mix that together. And then I love this little silicone brush, and you'll use that to brush this seasoned oil on the slices of bread, and then you can toast them up in the oven. Then I will also be making a chocolate cowboy cake that morning. You'll want the darkest chocolate cake mix that you have on your pantry shelf. I happen to have a Devil's Food cake. And of course you'll need oil and eggs. And one thing that I do in place of the water is that I will use cold leftover coffee from that morning that we brewed. And that makes it really good. And that's kind of why it's called cowboy cake. You use coffee instead of water. And in here, I have cinnamon and sugar mixed together. And it's really heavy on the cinnamon because I like a lot of cinnamon. And what you'll do is you'll mix your cake, pour it in your pan, and then you will sprinkle cinnamon and sugar over the top of that cake. And then once you bake it and it comes out, there's this really thin, crispy, shiny layer of cinnamon sugar on top. And it's really yummy and it's kind of different. But it's very good. I highly recommend it. So there we have it. Everything is from my pantry except for the eggs that I got from my chickens. Spaghetti supper with a meat sauce and green beans. A fresh loaf of Italian bread that we'll make into garlic toast, and a chocolate cowboy cake for dessert. Pantry meal number 1. And next up we have pantry meal number 2. Salmon patties, rice pilaf, carrots, and applesauce. And for the salmon patties, of course, you'll need a can of salmon. Now this one has the bones in it, so I will have to go through and carefully pick those out. And I like to use a pinch of onion powder and a sprinkle of seasoned salt. You can use any seasonings that you like in your salmon patties. And I'll need an egg and some breadcrumbs. And you will mix that all together in a bowl and form your salmon patties. I will usually make 4 patties out of this. It's a 14.75 ounce can. But after you put an egg or 2 in there and your breadcrumbs and your seasonings, you can stretch it to 4 patties. Now, next I will make this box of rice pilaf. And it does call for butter. But being we're going with pantry only, instead of the butter, I will use oil. And we'll heat up a can of carrots. And I will serve some little applesauce cups. And then for dessert, we will have the leftover chocolate cowboy cake. So there you have it. There's pantry meal number 2, salmon patties with rice pilaf, carrots, and some applesauce. Here's pantry meal number 3 for this week. I will be making a barbecue pork and onion pizza, and we'll either use mix or flour and yeast to make the crust. And then I have a mason jar cookie recipe that I'll share with you, and that will be dessert. So what I have here for my pizza, like I said, we can either use these thin and crispy pizza crust mixes, and I'll use 2 of those to make a big pizza to feed my family. Or you can use flour and some olive oil and some yeast and water to make your own pizza crust. And I'll take my pint of pork tenderloin that I canned, and I'll drain the juice off of that. And I will mix in some of this wonderful hickory smoked barbecue sauce. And that will go on top of my pizza crust. And then I will caramelize up these onions that I canned in a skillet. I'll have to drain the liquid off of those, of course, and brown them up a little bit. And you can use the butter-flavored Crisco to do that. Because remember, we're using only things from the pantry, so I'm not going to use butter or margarine. And if you have cheese on hand, that's great. And if not, you can sprinkle a little bit of the jarred Parmesan cheese on top. Now, I'm just giving you some ideas on what you can do just to make food from your pantry. And of course, this recipe would call, if I can get it to focus for y'all, it says use softened butter. And this is why I use butter-flavored Crisco. I keep it on my pantry shelf so that I have it. And of course, you're going to need eggs to make those cookies. So having a few chickens really comes in handy. So there you have it. Pantry meal number 3 for the week. Barbecue pork and onion pizza. And some cinnamon raisin oatmeal cookies. I like to put from scratch cookie mixes into my mason jars to have them on hand. It makes it fast and simple when I want to make some cookies for my family. And then I just hunt a little bag of raisins off the side. So there's a few more pantry tips for you. Pizza and cookies. Meal number 3. Okay, here we have a very fast, very simple meal from the pantry for number 4. It'll be chili mac with some corn on the side and leftover bread that we made to go with the spaghetti. Remember that? So you're going to boil your macaroni and drain it, and then you're going to throw in this can of chili. Now, I like the no beans type, but you can use whatever kind of chili that you like. And if you have a bigger family, you'll need 2 cans of that. And I store my pasta in containers like this. It's airtight, and it keeps any bugs out that might want to get in. And then we'll just heat up a can of corn to have on the side and have some of that leftover bread from spaghetti night. So there you have it, meal number 4. Fast, simple chili mac. Up next, we have meal number 5 from the pantry and my girls. We're going to make some chicken fried rice and a creation of my own that I came up with. I haven't done it yet, but when I do, I will make a video and show you. I'm going to call it s'mores pudding. So we'll see how that turns out. Anyway, for the chicken fried rice, I have this chicken helper, chicken fried rice, and it does call for, let me get that out of the glare for you. It says to use a pound of uncooked boneless skinless chicken breast, but then they just have you cook it anyway. You need 3 tablespoons of oil, 2 1/4 cups of water, and 2 eggs. So I have, instead of raw chicken, I have this pint of chicken breast that I canned. It's very simple to do. It's very delicious. I raw pack it, I can it, and it makes its own broth. That's not water. That's broth from 1 chicken breast in there. Delicious. And I will save that broth, and I will put it back in the fridge to use for something else. And I've got the eggs that the recipe requires for our fried rice. And I'm going to throw in some mixed vegetables at the end that I've heated up. That way it'll give it some more nutrition. And there's the oil that we'll need. So there's the chicken fried rice, the main part of the meal. Very nutritious. You've got 2 proteins and a vegetable. And that stuff is really good. I like to keep that in my pantry. We love that. Instead of going out to eat when it costs so much, I just make that. It's a lot more nutritious, and it's very good. Okay, now here is my made-up recipe. I'm going to make s'mores pudding. And here's a pint of my milk that I canned. And here's a box of instant chocolate pudding from Aldi's. Here's a sleeve of graham crackers. I've got some milk chocolate chips that are left that I need to use up. And it's not enough for any other recipe, but I thought I could do this. And I have some mini marshmallows. Again, here's the jar I saved them in. It keeps them fresh. It keeps them soft. They don't dry out. And they don't clump together either. So I'll take the milk and the pudding. I'll mix that up. And I'm going to put that into a little 9x9 pan. And then I'm going to sprinkle some chocolate chips and some marshmallows on top. And then right before I serve it, I'm going to take and break these graham crackers into 4 pieces. I'm going to stick 4 pieces into each bowl. And we're going to serve it like that and have some s'mores pudding. I don't know about you, but I think that sounds pretty good. I'll have to make it and taste it and show you, and we'll see how it is. So there's meal number 5, chicken fried rice and s'mores pudding for dessert. Up next we have meal number 6, straight from the pantry. We'll be having beef and gravy over instant mashed potatoes, spinach with cheese sauce, and a loaf of homemade bread with strawberry preserves. I will make up this gravy with the water that it calls for and add this can of beef to it and heat that through. For my potatoes, I've got instant potato flakes, a pint of milk that I canned, and a choice of quote-unquote butter, either vegetable oil or some butter-flavored Crisco. And of course you'll need water to make the instant potatoes that we'll serve this beef and gravy over. And then for the spinach and cheese sauce, I drain half of the liquid out of the can of spinach, and we add enough cheese sauce to it to make it taste good. That's how my husband likes it. So that's dinner. And then for dessert, if you can't find anything for dessert anymore, your pantry shelves are empty, you haven't been to the store, or whatever has happened happens, make a loaf of bread. And if you don't have yeast, you can always use baking soda or baking powder. Keep it stocked up. And then I like to can my own preserves because I can control the amount of sugar that I use in them. So this is a half sugar strawberry preserves that I canned. So that'll be dessert. And there you have it. Meal number 6, beef and gravy over instant mashed potatoes, spinach and cheese sauce, homemade bread with some strawberry preserves. And last but not least, we have meal number 7 from the pantry. Salsa chicken, rice optional. Bean and cheese dip with chips if you happen to have some. And the bread from the night before, where we had bread and strawberry preserves for dessert, this night I'm going to turn it into a raisin bread pudding. So in order to make your salsa chicken, you'll need some chicken. And you can either use a can of chicken or a pint of chicken. And a jar of salsa. This is what I happen to have on my shelf. I love the picante sauce from Kroger's. It's delicious. And I'll use a teaspoon of taco seasoning in that as well. And this will make a lot of liquid. And if it's not enough liquid, you can always add some water and a little more taco seasoning or tomato paste if you have it on hand. And you can throw in some rice at the end. Now that is optional. Sometimes we'll just eat this on a tortilla. It's very good that way. Or we might include it on top of our beans and cheese and chips and have like a salsa chicken nachos. So there are some options for you there. Salsa chicken and rice, salsa and chicken on a tortilla that you can make, or nacho style. And for the nachos, we have a can of refried beans, again from Aldi's. They're very good. And some taco seasoning, they'll get stirred into that. And leftover cheese sauce from the spinach and cheese the night before. And I just had an afterthought. You know that chili mac? There should probably be enough cheese that if we wanted to, we could open it that night and put a little bit of cheese on the chili mac. So this jar of cheese sauce can go a long way. And then I have some leftover chips that we need to finish eating up. So there's the dinner. And then, like I said, we'll take the loaf of bread from the night before when we had strawberry preserves on it for dessert. And I will make a bread pudding. I'll use a pint of my milk. some cubed up bread, some raisins, and some cinnamon. And the star of the show, of course, eggs from my chickens. It'll be a really good, yummy cinnamon raisin bread pudding. So there you have it. Meal number 7, straight from the pantry. It'll be a Mexican feast. Delicious. Thanks for watching.